Well, for another perspective on the deal that reshapes the whole web calling market, we turn to New York and Jason Maynard. He's a senior analyst at Wells Fargo and has a hold rating on Microsoft, but says this was a good move. Jason, welcome to Bloomberg West. So first of all, eBay couldn't make it work. Microsoft has certainly had its fair share of criticism. Can Microsoft turn Skype into a revenue generator?
You know, I think that's a fair question if they can turn it into a revenue generator. But at the very least, if they pursue a policy of call it do no harm, they should be able to help make this deal very accretive for the company, fuel some of those businesses like you talked about earlier, make Connect better, make Windows 7 better, make Office better. So even if they don't do a lot, they can probably get a lot out of this deal by just letting Skype be Skype.
But isn't the integration, how Microsoft integrates Skype, isn't that going to be key? And how can you be sure that they're going to do it well?
Yeah, it's a fair point to make and worry about the integration. I think if they keep Skype separate and pursue just the technical integration, make Skype, deeply native within Connect, make it native within Windows, but also keep Skype running on all the other platforms, run on your Apple devices, run on your Google devices, I think they're going to get a lot of leverage out of this deal. So, it's not without risk, but I think the upside benefit from buying Skype puts them in a much better position than they were in yesterday.
Jason, keeping things separate is not the way Microsoft does things. They integrate. They bring everybody up into Redmond. They fold them into the situation. That's why a lot of people tend to leave after they've been acquired by Microsoft and earned their way out of there. Do you think they're really going to change the way they do things? I think it's a good sign that Microsoft's going to leave the Skype team in the Bay Area and leave the rest of the Skype team in Europe. I can't imagine they're going to try and move the Europeans to Seattle. I think that's probably would be a bad idea. When you look at Microsoft, they have made mistakes in the past, and I think they've earned this level of skepticism in terms of their ability to integrate acquisition. Aquana didn't work out well. They haven't executed in a lot of the new emerging development opportunities. But I think if they learn their lessons from past mistakes, they can make this work. This isn't a stretch. This isn't like you have to throw a Hail Mary pass here. So I think there's a lot of upside if they can just kind of follow a very conservative and controlled development plan. They should be able to get some good leverage out of this.
Microsoft is an investor in Facebook. How might Facebook get more access to Skype because of this?
Well, we wrote about this today. If Facebook was interested, or even if they weren't, given the integration between Facebook and Bing, I have to imagine that there are going to be conversations when the deal closes where Facebook could integrate Skype and have communication capabilities within the Facebook platform. It makes all the sense in the world. There's no reason why that wouldn't happen. Seems like it would be a great place to put an icon on on the Facebook mobile application. So I think there's a lot of touch points where Skype can be integrated into Facebook. Not technically rocket science to do it. So there's ways to get leverage out of it, even just through the Facebook potential.
Jason, what does Microsoft need to do with its mobile business, and could this Skype acquisition be part of fixing that?
Yeah, see, I think this is the key here. Microsoft has been late in a lot of markets, and they have not executed from a development standpoint well. This actually gets them into a market that is probably still in the early stages of adoption. So they're not trying to, if you will, play complete catch-up. They're moving the ball forward here. I think this will help with mobile operators. I think this will help as we move to a 4G world where you can have voice and video communications. So actually now today, if you look at this going forward, I think Windows 7 has a better chance. Now, I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to beat Apple or Google anytime soon. But this is another step to Microsoft at least being in the game and having a shot at relevancy.
And Jason, I want to ask you about the price tag, $8.5 billion. Is Skype worth it?
Well, let me put it this way. It's not the deal of the century from a valuation standpoint. Oracle paid less for Sun Microsystems, so this isn't going to go down in the history of tech M&A as the cheapest acquisition ever. But compared to other internet stocks out there, I think it's a reasonable price to pay for Skype. The upside is going to have to come from driving it through the other business lines.
Yet Skype didn't follow through with its IPO. It is not profitable. Isn't that a huge concern?
Well, I think when you look at Skype right now, it's almost $900 million, growing 20% a year. The operating profitability is there on a non-GAAP basis. This deal is going to be accretive to Microsoft. So I think it's degree of profitability. I think the bigger point is Microsoft now has relevancy in in the internet services space around communication. This is going to help their phone business, going to help a lot of the other product lines. So I think from that standpoint, it's not dilutive to overall Microsoft earnings. So I think it's fine from a valuation standpoint.
Jason, we've banned the word accretive from Bloomberg West, so don't say that again. But let's say it is accretive. Let's say now I said it. It adds to the actual earnings of the company. Well, have you really modeled this thing out to understand how profitable it can become? Because it's growing through tremendous growth with all kinds of charges that kind of confuse the income statement as to what the possibility is of Skype and its profitability.
Yeah, Cory, we've stripped out a lot of the what I would call the non-cash charges on this transaction and looked at it. It's not a deal that you're gonna say is going to add multiple 100 basis points of operating margin improvement to Microsoft. I think the upside or the potential here is that it's a service that will add credibility to some of the other products that they can monetize. So I think it'll be an indirect benefit. It's sort of a do no harm to the financial statements. And oh, by the way, that cash was sitting overseas earning nothing. So it is not going to be a dilutive transaction. How about that? It's not going to hurt them by doing this deal.
An expensive bet, though, at $8.6 billion.
Hey, when you're in this position in the phone business, you lose billions of dollars a year in the online services. I think it's a bet you have to make.
So what does this mean, Jason, for competitors like Google Voice and Apple FaceTime?
Well, I think it goes to show you that if you're going to have a credible mobile platform, these are key services that are I would say integral to every enabling platform technology. So, they needed this product line, they needed this platform to be comparable to what you're going to be able to do on an Android phone and iOS device. So without something like Skype, and without the critical mass, and without the users of Skype, they would have been disadvantaged, and I think the odds of them closing the gap with Windows Phone would be very small. So it's a high, you could say it's a high price to pay, but it's a bet I think they had to make. Doesn't hurt the financials. There's integration risk, but I think the benefits and the potential upside outweighs the cost.
I want to bring in Om Malik now, an award-winning journalist and founder of the popular blog GigaOM. Om, you broke news on this yesterday. Why do you think Skype sold rather than going through with the IPO? You described, quote unquote, antsy investors.
Yeah, I think the guys at Silver Lake and eBay wanted to lock in their profits. And one of the key things they wanted to do was get a good price, which they did at $8.5 billion. Everybody gets to make a lot of money. I think this is the biggest private equity deal of its kind, and in the amount of time they've owned the stock. So it's pretty impressive return for Silver Lake investors, and it actually, makes sense for them to lock in their profits. You never know what's going to happen in the future. I've heard some rumblings that the company was having a tough time converting people to paid services, especially the paid video service, which is what they were banking their future on. So there was a little bit of uncertainty around the company, and they decided that maybe it is a good time to sell. And also you have to remember, sales are always about, one person's desperation, right? How much somebody is going to pay. And I think that's exactly was the case here.
Jason, what's your reaction to that Skype kind of sold out rather than going through with the IPO? Jason?
I think he brings up a really good point, which is it's difficult to compete in a market like this as a standalone company when you're battling the likes of potentially Google and Apple. The monetization challenge is going to be hard for Microsoft. It would have been hard for Skype. I think if you look at take the enterprise business as an example, Microsoft already has enterprise agreements with these customers. They know how to sell into that space. So that's an area for monetization that, frankly, Skype didn't have those business relationships. They didn't have that business sales force. Microsoft can bring that to the table. So that's an additive, if you will, to the relationship that Skype didn't have today if they went on a standalone basis.
Hey, Om, it's Cory Johnson here in San Francisco. I wonder if you look at this deal as bad news for Google, a company that also, you could imagine how this would also fit with their business and the ways they're trying to compete in the mobile space with Android and beyond.
It really is bad news for Google, to be honest. Google has their Google Voice Play, which they're working on, and they need to actually scale it up. But I think this was really, which I wrote in my post, was it was actually Microsoft trying to compete with itself in trying to close this deal. I didn't see Facebook buying it, and I wrote that consistently, and I didn't see Google having an urgent need to buy this company except for the user base. And it's not like they can't get to this user base even with their current version of the Google Voice product. I think this is a great move, however, for Microsoft, in my opinion. I think Microsoft made the right move. Everybody is focused on Skype's financials right now. That is looking at today's number and today's potential and not really thinking about where Microsoft needs to be in 2 years to compete, which is having a Google Voice or an Apple FaceTime-like application. And why not start with Skype, the single biggest brand in internet telephony? I think this is a great move for that part.
All right, Om Malik, thank you so much for your thoughts on this and great reporting by you on this story. Also, thank you, Jason Maynard of Wells Fargo, for your insights on this deal. We'll be following it more closely after the break. And